Now we remember the man known as Caballo Blanco, or the White Horse.
Started running a long time ago, and I'm an ultra-distance runner is what people call it, but I just call it I like to run.
That's Micah True in an interview with Runner's World last year. True was a long-distance runner made famous by Christopher McDougall's nonfiction bestseller, Born to Run, A Hidden Tribe, Super Athletes, and the Greatest Race the World Has Never Seen. Micah True's body was found Saturday in a remote area near New Mexico's Gila National Forest. He had vanished 4 days earlier, heading out for a morning jog. The cause of death is unknown. He was 58 years old.
There's not many places left in the world where you have to travel for 3 full days just to get to somewhere that is so remote and wild. And that's what intrigues me about the natural beauty of these deep canyons, is just the wildness of it, and that the people here are still such a connected part of that wildness.
Copper Canyon, well, it certainly is in the middle of nowhere. I always say it's more difficult getting to some of these races than it is to actually do the race itself.
It's not dangerous, but it's a lot of time in difficult conditions. The bus ride down into Enrique Canyon, it's not a Disneyland ride. There are no safety rails.
The Mas Loco family is just a bunch of people from all over the world who somehow learned about this place, learned about the people, learned about Micah, and who actually came down here and traveled here and gathered here to experience what it is to be in the Copper Canyons and to share a run with the Raramuri, the running people of the canyons. And once you've done that, something changes, I think.
I had been down in the Copper Canyons trying to find some information about the Tarahumara. I just wanted to understand what made them such superhuman runners. That was my perception of them at the time. So I hear about this guy named Caballo Blanco, and everyone's talking about this guy Caballo. And they said, well, go find Caballo. And that's what got me started. The difficulty was when you actually track down Micah, he can be as difficult to talk to as the Tarahumara.
These are the new posters for this year's Copper Canyon Ultra Marathon. Come out 3 weeks before the race. Actually, maybe 3.5 or 4 weeks they came out before the run. So that's Mexico.
He didn't have anything. He was just a guy wandering around pretty much in his old truck, communicating to the world in an old PC laptop with a dog. And there's hundreds of people here right now to celebrate him. How do you do that? It's Caballo Blanco.
When I first met Micah, he was unbelievably evasive, or let's say defensive about his past. He would not answer a question, and it wasn't like I was interrogating him. But then I discovered something about Micah that is really the key to unlocking this guy. Go for a run with him.
On the lake, what do go?
You take him out for a run, and this guy is a puppy rolling on his back, wants to get his belly rubbed. He loves it, and he loves sharing it, and every wonderful experience I've ever had with him, the time I've seen him at his just happiest, it's always been with his legs in motion.
I have a mantra, easy, light, and smooth. I like to run and just kind of find myself in that place, starting easy and becoming light and getting smooth, and that's how I like to run, feeling like I can do that all day long. The Raramuri don't have a mantra; they just run. Raramuri literally means the light-footed ones, or the running people. And that's what they've called themselves for hundreds of years. So it's ingrained in their culture to run. They're running prowess has been renowned for centuries, and they were used by the Chihuahua government to deliver mail at one point. They'd run hundreds of miles with sacks of mail on their backs, and they would deliver mails. They were messengers.
So my question to Micah was, can you show me how to run? Can you teach me how to run the way they run? So the next morning, we get up early, crack of dawn, 6 o'clock, go off in the hills above Creole. And again, almost immediately, I'm gasping and out of breath. And this is a guy that I already found pretty bristly, you know, and hard to crack. And I thought, I can't keep up with this dude. He's just going to drop me, let me go. And I just started to mimic what he was doing, running right behind him as close as I could, and just try to copy his motions. And I just started to notice things. I noticed my back straightening, and my arms dropping a little bit, and my knees were coming up. And running started to feel different. It felt relaxed and strong, and I was learning just by following him. And then we come out of this trail onto this mesa above Creole. And that's when he told me that he was going to put on this race. And he said, it's going to be next March. And I'm like, I'm in for this race. And he's all right, man, go home, try and find some more people to come, practice what I showed you, and come back.
The race name is the Copper Canyon Ultra Marathon. The people here have started calling it the Copper Canyon Ultra Marathon Caballo Blanco, but I just call it the Copper Canyon Ultra Marathon. And it started off myself, and I wanted to do something to encourage their raramari, which is Tarahumara word for foot runners, and it's what they call themselves. And I wanted to encourage them to continue to run free and to continue their age-old traditions of running. So I decided I would make a foot race in which I would spread the word in the Batapilas Canyon that we were going to have a race from Urique to Batapilas, and I would meet runners along the route. We would walk from my home in Batapilas over to Urique. I'd buy them the nicest hotel in town and meals at the Plaza restaurant, and after a couple of days we would race back to Batapilas. And that's how it started the first 3 races. The town of Urique was really excited about it, and they asked us if we'd have the race here in Urique. We started having the race here in 2005. Every year it's grown. We encourage people to come run whether they're good runners or not, even if they don't run anymore. And we're encouraging the raramari to, come out and run, and if you finish the race, you win. If you participate, you win. If you wake up in the morning and you feel good, you win. If you live the good life and eat the good food and have love for other people, you win. So the idea is just to remember that it's a cool thing to do. So we allow 12 hours to finish and win 500 pounds of corn. Anybody who finishes the race wins 500 pounds of corn. So it's sharing. It's about the primary sponsor of the race is a concept. It's not a corporation, it's a concept. The word is korima. It's a Tarahumara word meaning sharing. We have no corporate sponsors. It's all about sharing. The people are the sponsors. This race is for and by the people, with the people. So it's very unique.
By the following February, I was thinking to myself, you know what, there's a chance I could actually pull this off. So I fly down to El Paso, come out of the little tiny El Paso airport, and then across the parking lot, I see these 2 dark figures, and it was Scott Jurek and Luis Escobar. I thought, wow, man, Scott Jurek is showing up. This is crazy. This guy has cracked mysteries of endurance athletics that nobody else has. Nobody else has won 7 consecutive Western States 100s. And then simultaneously win the Badwater Ultramarathon 2 weeks later.
So I had all these great experiences and, had won all of these great events. And, after a while, I start thinking about, okay, what is the purpose of this all? There was something more than competition, more than ego. It wasn't really until I had the opportunity to go down to Mexico and run with the Tarahumaran Indians in the Copper Canyon that things started to solidify.
Instantly, I think we all had this awareness that something special was about to happen.
Bit by bit, this whack pack started to assemble. Jen Shelton and Billy Barnett, I thought, there's no way these two ding-dong surfers are showing up. I walked back to the airport, there they are. Unfortunately, they went out that night and got ridiculously drunk, and I was pulling Jen out of the hotel lobby at 4 o'clock in the morning. My first intention was, second the sun comes up, I am putting their two drunk asses on a bus and I'm sending them home. I'm not taking these two idiots down into the Copper Canyon. But man, they just made this miraculous X-Man mutant recovery, and off we went.
Okay, this is Barefoot Ted coming to you from the Copper Canyon. Got the Copper Canyon in the background and making my way to Creel. Barefoot Ted is me, I'm Barefoot Ted, and I'm also a character in a book that I'm a huge fan of, primarily because it tells an incredible story that I was so lucky to have been a part of. It's a story about what it means to be human. And the thing that makes us human is the fact that we've learned how to not move around this incredible observing device we have in our head with our incredible feet. With our feet end up becoming the opposite end of this marvelous machine that we are so lucky to embody, that we're so lucky to have been literally given, passed on in incredible and indeed codes, our own genes. Our ancestors, I've come to the conclusion that our ancestors in their default equipment, this ancient technology that we embody, I believe that when you operate that equipment well, the reward is health and happiness, it's exhilaration, it's connectedness. And that indeed that connectedness really begins ultimately at the interface of your foot with this world.
I was not familiar with the world of ultra running at that point. I'd never been to an ultra race. I'd never run an ultra. I knew nothing about the world of ultra running. So I wasn't familiar with these personalities. And my first impression was, these are a bunch of outliers. You know, these are a bunch of borderline deranged people. And that's the reason why they were there. You know, who turned up for this? Normal people did not show up for this. Strange people showed up for this. So off we went down to the canyon. So the next thing was, okay, we have somehow assembled racers for this unlikely race. The next question is, will we actually have a race director? Because I had, I believe, almost no communication with Micah for about a year. And Caballo's answers were always kind of weird and evasive and like, do it yourself, and Mexico's a free country, man. And they're like, look, I'm not asking for a favor. Just tell me how to actually get to where you are. And he wouldn't answer. So we get off that bus in Creel. We come tumbling off the bus. Jen and Billy are hungover. Scott is a little bit sort of cautious, as is his way. If he's uncertain, Scott goes silent. Lewis, you know, probably had his camera in his hands. He's looking around. Ted, I'm sure, was just like a carnival ride. Mike is there to greet us, and I think he just sort of drinks all this in, and his first thought was like, nah, not for me. So we go out for dinner that night, and everyone's drinking and talking, and you know, I'm watching Mike, and I'm just thinking, this is not what this dude wanted.
As soon as we got into the restaurant and sat down, and he started telling us about Manuel Luna and his son, who had been murdered not too, recently. And so the trip sort of started off not in the way that we were expecting. It was sort of shocking and sort of solemn.
That's reality that's occurring here. The drug gang violence and all that is a real thing.
After that meal, we got to a bridge kind of like this one here, and Micah said, raise your right hand. If I get hurt, lost, or die, it's my own damn fault. Amen. We all repeated and walked across the bridge, and the story really started right there.
To me, every step of the way was going to be the last step. You know, when I first went down the canyons, I didn't think I was going to find the Tarahumara, and I did, but they wouldn't talk. They tell me about this guy Caballo. I think I'm not going to find him. He tells me about this race. I don't think I can do it. Then I don't think he's going to be there. So every step of the way, my expectation was this is going to be a brick wall. And yet there's always a little crack in the brick wall to go a little further.
This is my house up on the cliff. All the locals call my house El Stablo de Caballo Blanco, the stable of the horse. And it's kind of a stable. It's pretty rustic.
Give me a tour.
Well, there's one of the guest bedroom. The windows, the caballo bed, the caballo stove, the caballo lamp, and my bunch of stuff is stashed inside up here, my personal items. It stays real cool. It's really filthy right now, so I really shouldn't even be showing it. I haven't been here in months, so I haven't been able to clean it up. It's going to take me a long day just to knock the cobwebs down.
This is from the trip 2006. This is McDougall doing what he did the entire 2 weeks, interacting, taking notes, constantly writing, constantly writing. Jen with her black eye that you can't really see, Billy hungover, Scott kind of not sure about anything, and Ted constantly talking.
So Caballo is the vehicle or the place where all, and then what happens is, it's almost like as these things are finding it, getting down into the canyon, suddenly we have this like explosion of personalities and ideas, and it's all, we're there seeing it germinate. I mean, we have like champion runners, and we have, you know, people like me that are just like coming from another space, you know, the reasons why all of us came down here. You know, Caballo is the person we all aimed at, but why we were coming down here ended up becoming all kinds of different interesting things. Without him, that magical space wouldn't have come into existence. He was the catalyst. He was the catalyst.
At this point, we had no contact with any of the Tarahumara. All these racers that Micah said were going to show, we had seen no sign of them. So I was increasingly doubtful that there's going to be any kind of a race. So we set off on this hike, and we go up in the mountains, and we come to our first stop where Caballo said that we would be meeting up with some of the Tarahumara. We get there, like, hey, well, they're not here. Maybe they're late, you know. And all of a sudden, we realize, oh, they are here. They're here. They're standing out there in the trees, watching us. So I'd seen Ornlufo before. He was the first person I'd ever met, and there's Silvino, who I met before. Mike introduced us to Manuel Luna, who I thought, there's no way this guy's coming. His son had just been murdered. There's no way he's coming. There he is. And then we began this long hike up and over the mountain toward Urique, and it just became so cool and so fun. Jen's doing handstands on the edge of the cliff, the Tarahumara cracking up. I had a little bag of Doritos that I brought along for the hike, and I opened it up and I handed it over. I think everyone's going to take one. I think it was Ornlufo. Whoever took it first just like took the bag up, just drained the bag, you know, just ate them all. But that was kind of cool. It was just like this fun, rough adventure was happening, and we're in the middle of it, and it's actually working. And then Mike again just lit up when he saw Manuel Luna. It was like his first Christmas. He was so happy, and that was something that Micah had in mind, that he really wanted the Tarahumara and, you know, the goofy gringos to bond prior to the race. To him, this was a learning experience. This is two cultures who have been divided for 400 years, getting together over a common love, a common pursuit, and finding the humanity in each other, connecting through this thing that they both love. His fear all along had been that he's going to do some harm. His big concern was he did not want to be the guy that exploited the Tarahumara. He did not want to be the guy that brought something down to Urique that was going to be a poison. And he was worried about it. And I think when he met us, he had a good reason to be worried. This was not what he expected. And now finally, when the race comes, and he sees that the very best he could have hoped for is actually happening, that these people from the outside who came down are respectful and admiring. You know, he sees the humility that Scott Jurek has, you know, in front of the Tarahumara. You know, he sees the real compassion, you know, and humanity of Barefoot Ted. He sees, like, you know, Jen charming in a way that is fun, you know, that she's not the prima donna, you know, that she actually is fun, is having fun, everyone has fun around her. So basically the best he could have hoped for from his country is happening. This dream that he'd had by himself in this wacky little hut at the bottom of the canyon had finally come true in ways that nobody ever could have predicted.
So there's 2 or 3 photographs sort of become iconic of that trip. Arnolfo in his bright red camisa and Jurek in his bright orange running jersey, 2 of the greatest distance runners on the planet at that moment. And here they are together in this place, running in front of me and my camera. They're almost identical in the way that their posture, running form, position, it looks almost artificial. And some people have said, oh, you took 2 pictures and photoshopped them together. Those images are totally organic. It happened as you see it.
They taught me that, you know, it was about efficiency, it was about the basics, it was about understanding the trail, and it was about knowing where the water holes are. It was about making every step count, because for them, every step they take is calories burned, and calories burn mean that you have to find those calories.
The town of Orique was just on fire for this thing. Everybody's out, they got mariachi bands, they're having the time of their lives. They're watching Scott doing battle to the finish line with Arnulfo, and Arnulfo winning, and the town just went berserk. You know, the hometown boy conquers, you know, the great American champion.
Scott came in 2nd place behind a Raramuri from the bottom of nowhere who nobody's ever heard of. The first thing Scott did when he finished 6 minutes later was bow to Raramuri. The crowd went wild.
Running means something more than, you know, winning medals and, you know, winning prize money. And it was a really magical experience that I was able to not only learn about why I was running and why I continued to run, but to help them realize the importance of running in their lives, in their culture.
You know, Caballo is an outsider. As much as he's been down there, as close as he's become to many of the people in Orique, that's their town, not his. And to have them respond in this way to his race had to be just so touching to him, so gratifying that everybody came out for his race. And it was only after we had done that race, he was so just giddy, so happy. And that time, he finally sat down that night and started to tell his story, who he was, and what brought him there.
In the mid-90s, I ran with the Raramuri in the Leadville 100-mile race in Colorado. I ran the last 50 with our Raramuri, the last 50 miles of a 100-mile race, and we became friends, pulling each other through. And after that race, I began to come to the Copper Canyons. It was kind of my inspiration, my motivation to begin to come to the Canyonlands.
He had been a boxer, sort of dirtbag, traveling prize fighter, looking for something else. Thought he'd found it with a woman. He hadn't. She was gone. When he had run out of answers and places to look, he showed up for this race, and he'd had a bike accident and wasn't in shape to run the race, but he offered to be a pacer for these Indians who had showed up. And it was that long 50 miles through the hills at night with a man he could not speak with because they had, you know, no language in common, that I think it all came together for him. I think he decided, look, whatever these people know, that's what I'm looking for.
I had always meant to come to the Copper Canyons, but I always had an attitude about northern Mexico, just kind of beelining it for the southern Mexico and Chiapas and Guatemala during my travels. And I had been wintering in Central America for years. I used to winter in Guatemala, and I'd run around volcanoes and up and down volcanoes in Guatemala, and I'd run around Lake Atitlan, and that's where I actually got my handle, Caballo Blanco. I would run through the villages, and the people would line up on the street and smile and say, "Eres un Caballo Blanco, you're a white horse." And after a while, everybody just started calling me Caballo Blanco.
I found an article from, I guess, the Boulder Daily Camera about a coat drive that a guy named Micah True had done, probably right around 94, 95, where he go on local radio. So anybody who wants to give coats, give them to me. I'm going to bring them down to these Indians in the canyon. I found that article. Called the reporter, Michael Sandrock. You know, he knew Micah, told me a little bit about him.
Well, I met Caballo just back during the 1980s. I ran for the university here, and then, like a lot of people, just stayed in Boulder because, like Micah, just loved the mountains. So he was just in the 80s. He was just one of the many fit guys in Boulder, running with his shirt off. That's how I remember him, just running his shirt off, lean, tall, running. He was a great trail runner, obviously, and I remember I couldn't keep up with him on the downhills. And he was always just in tune with, you know, so I say, how do you do that? Because he would just, you know, you guys have seen him run downhill. I said, how do you do that? He said, you know, you can't think about it. You just let yourself go, and you're in tune with the trail. And you have to know the rocks are your friends. Like, the rocks are my friends, they're gonna trip me. It's like, well, that's the problem. You think the rocks are gonna trip you, but you have to use them and go with the flow. And so he's the guy who learned early on. I guess we'd say he was awakened, enlightened early on, and he went with the flow of life, where a lot of us took jobs maybe they weren't the best jobs for us, and we knew that that wasn't the proper path. He found his proper path early on.
I knew Micah from living in Boulder, especially from Mountain Sun. Talk we had was mostly about our dreams and our connection to nature. We all had this alternative view of spirituality.
The 60s was still alive here, the 60s, and that spirit of nonconformity, of helping the earth. I think why a lot of us ended up here was because of Boulder was a place where like-minded spirits can come, and people who are searching for something different, who say, you know, I'm not going to take the typical route, I just don't want to conform. And that spirit of Boulder, Allen Ginsberg would be down here at the Trident, you know, same time as Micah, you know, and it's just what a cool place. I remember William Burroughs just coming walking down here, and so all those people, but it was just all part of that Boulder identity. And Micah really is a huge part of that identity.
I learned more about Micah after I published Born to Run than before. There was only a certain distance I could get down the path into his past, because he was just not opening it up at all. And so I found stuff on my own. And at one point I did something where, about a year or so after the 2006 race, I had gone to Denver and started sort of combing through newspaper archives and came across an article for a local weekly paper about local fighters. And there was a picture of Micah True, the Gypsy Cowboy. He wanted to write a book about a boxer. And the only way to do that would be to actually fight, and he wanted to get those experiences.
You know, he trained a lot, and the endurance helped him when he was heads up. He did tell me this, when he was heads up with these black belts, because he was no black belt in karate, but a lot of these guys were.
Micah was running up in Wyoming, and he went into a bar, and he just got his tights on and everything like that, and a couple guys started hassling him at the bar. He just wanted some water. And he just walked away and, you know, didn't want to get any kind of hassle. So he was walking out through the parking lot, and the guys kind of follow him and kind of start giving him a little, you know, this and that, kind of pushing him a little bit. And the way Neil tells it is that Micah spun around, and with one punch knocked out one guy and a kick knocked out the other guy, and then continued his run.
I learned more about his boxing after I read the book than in the 30 years that I knew him. I always had the impression that it wasn't his proudest moment, but maybe I'm wrong.
So I asked Micah about that. I said, hey, Micah, what about this? It's a great story. I said, what about that story when you're up in Wyoming? He's like, I want to talk about that. No, come on, you know, being a reporter. I'm like, well, come on, you know, did these guys bother you? He goes, hey, a couple guys. Sometimes I get bothered, you know, in those early days. So I said, well, come on, come on, you knocked out two guys? Could you really do that? And he didn't say anything, and all of a sudden he just went, boom. And like in a second, his fist was like this close to my nose, and he didn't say anything else. And I said, okay, he could have done it.
When I got that picture of the Gypsy Cowboy, I blew it up and I put it on a T-shirt for Micah, thinking, hey, he'd be really delighted. He was pissed. You know, how dare I? And you know, I'm making him out to be this tough guy, and the drug traffickers are going to be pissed. And I'm like, dude, then don't wear it. You know, don't like the shirt, don't wear the shirt. Later on, I see pictures of him wearing it all over the place. He loved it. So it was this game, you know, this cat and mouse game.
And what about, who was Gypsy Cowboy?
Well, Gypsy Cowboy was a prize fighter.
You got a lot of Muhammad Ali in you. Tell us about it, that whole boxing thing.
I don't want to talk about it.
It was after he got the phone call from that fight magazine that had ranked him like #1 in his weight class, and they wanted to interview him, and he's like, I'm done fighting. As of this phone call, I'm done fighting. So he went back and he read this book, and it was like 300 or 400 pages, and he said, you know, I laughed, cried, I closed it, and I lit it on fire, burned it up, and left.
He was real fit as a result of retiring from boxing, and a lot of pent-up energy, to say the least. But he had this little moving business and had bought a truck, and when you called his phone, he said, fast, efficient, athletic moves, true moves. He was so fast, because he always wanted to get a run in.
I was running 160, 170 miles a week just for fun, you know, and to get around into the mountains. And a friend said, well, you should run this race up in Wyoming, an ultra race. And so he talked me into it, and I went up there and I accidentally won it.
He won the race, and he set the course record. He literally was running under 6:30 a mile at the end. And that's at high altitude into a 30-some-mile-an-hour wind on open, funky highway. I mean, he was definitely much more gifted than people thought, by far. I mean, by far.
I won a few races, then I started taking myself too seriously, thinking that I had to compete, and I didn't like myself when I wouldn't win or place highly, so I got out of it.
You know, his attitude was, it was less of really what you would call athleticism and sort of experiential. But for the most part, it was all about experiencing something that not, at that time, too many people were doing.
I took out a notice at a public radio station in Boulder, Colorado, that I was looking for coats and sweaters to bring to the high mountain village of Chogita, where my Raramuri friends that I ran with lived. And within a week I had 400 quality coats and sweaters that I put in my camper truck, and I drove down to the Copper Canyons, and that's how I first became affiliated with the Copper Canyons. I camped in this big valley, and every morning people would bring me pinole. Women would bring me gifts, and they would just leave it there, and silently and without saying a word, there would be breakfast for me every morning. I passed out the 400 quality coats and sweaters to the people. Every man, woman, and child of Chogita got a coat and sweater, and I just camped and interacted for the week. The people are very quiet and very shy. When they practice korima, giving, sharing, they do it without words. They just leave something without saying anything. I wouldn't even know who left it. That's korima. It's giving something without an attachment to the results, without an attachment to hearing a thank you, or even acknowledging who it was that gave. After spending a week there, I had heard that the deep canyons, Batapilas in particular, were really warm and subtropical climates, and lots of traditional Raramuri lived down there. So I set off in my truck and I headed for Batapilas.
He was searching for something himself. He was kind of searching for an identity or that thing that he really wanted to do. I don't feel like he felt he belonged in Colorado you know, after his boxing career. I think he just wanted to find something to do, and he also wanted to find some peace. And when he finally came down here, he found his identity, you know, and he loved the Tarahumara, but he also loved just running through the Sierra alone.
I began to interact with the Raramuri people of the Batipilas Canyon very gradually because I wanted to give them lots of respect. I figured they lived in the boondocks for a good reason, so I would skirt the outskirts of their towns during my runs. I never entered their villages. I would just kind of pass, and perhaps that's where Chris McDougall got his notion and description of the ghost horse as being a ghost, because I didn't really bother the Tarahumara. I didn't really interact for a while until after a while when it was clear that they were comfortable and they were curious and they wanted to interact with me.
For days, I'd been searching Mexico's Sierra Madre for the phantom, known as Caballo Blanco, the white horse. I'd finally arrived at the end of the trail in the last place I expected to find him, not in the deep wilderness he was said to haunt, but in the dim lobby of an old hotel on the edge of a dusty desert town. I read that first paragraph, I'm like, this is great.
I think people are just looking to get away from the way that life has become. Get away from the fluorescent lights, get away from their desks, transform themselves physically. And that book spoke to a lot of folks, and I think it just woke them up.
Some said Caballo Blanco was a fugitive. Others heard he was a boxer who had run off to punish himself after beating a man to death in the ring. No one knew his name or age or where he was from. It was like some old West gunslinger whose only traces were tall tales and a whiff of cigarella smoke. Yeah, and it goes on from there, and as soon as I saw that, as soon as I read that, I said, this is a great book.
I think Micah spent a lot of time inside of his own head, and a lot of that time was spent sort of telling his own story. I think that there was constantly a film reel sort of spilling out in his mind where he could see the film of his own life playing against his mental screen all the time. And then I show up, and I show it a little bit differently.
Well, Geronimo was my hero when I was a little boy. I loved Geronimo. And people ask, why did you love Geronimo? Well, why was he your hero? Geronimo was my hero because he refused to come onto the reservation. He ran free.
I think he was, in his own mind, kind of a self-mythologizing guy. He sort of saw himself as kind of a latter-day Geronimo. And I honestly feel very confident that I got him exactly right. I really feel like I depicted him exactly the way he is and got all the facts of his life correct. So I found out very little about his childhood. I heard a little bit from him about his father. I was able to pick up the trail when he was after Humboldt State University, his boxing days. I met some guys who knew him in Hawaii. But no, the actual childhood was always a locked box to me.
It seemed to me he was a quarterback or a wide receiver for a large California high school. And, that's almost like college in other states.
Well, I remember as a child just running around for play and running free. As children, we run for no reason. We run because it feels good to run. We run to express our freedom. When we're happy, we run.
He was always dreaming. I know that the book Born to Run brought his message out, and he was really proud of that. The only thing I'd love to say is that he's been depicted as the lone wanderer of the Sierra Madre, the lone wanderer of the High Sierra, and for him, that expression to him meant that he was like always wandering, lost, without a purpose, without a vision. That's how he would internalize it. He said, I'd rather be known as the lone dreamer because I always had this dream and I thought it would work and it all came together and, he always says it's a beautiful thing. So he still was a dreamer.
Entre Amigos, where we're all staying, is this place a few hundred meters out of town. You come in the front gate and the first thing you see is this huge veggie garden, and then there's the owner, Keith, who's built it all. He's made this hot water system where you simply, before you have a shower, you go and stoke up the fire under the hot water. Staying there is an experience in itself of being here.
The running is essentially our whole season this year. We've had back practically nothing and before the upcoming marathon. If it weren't for Micah, this marathon, it would be a real bust season for us. The people that make it here recently have made it here despite the news. You know, the news looks so horrifying in the States of what's coming out of Mexico. People who make it here from the United States have run a gauntlet of friends and family members who told them that they might as well be jumping off a cliff.
I think what's special about it is that the people that do come down here, they've made it through that filter, and they're really strong, passionate people that see the vision, and through the story of Caballo Blanco are inspired and really want to see what it's all about.
Pues nosotros nos sentimos muy contentos todos, no nomás yo, toda la gente se siente contenta, porque pues vienen ellos a acompañar, porque tú sabes de salir tan re lejos, no puedan saber qué les pueda pasar.
When you're out of food, it's a terrible thing, and so anyway, it's just wonderful being here and being able to support these people, and this is what it's all about.
My feeling has always been they give us so much more by being able to allow us to come into this community and participate, but yeah, it's awesome to be here and awesome to be able to leave something behind.
Well, here in Eureka, you feel like you're right at the bottom of this huge canyon. So when you look around, everywhere you look, you're surrounded by steep canyon walls on all sides. And you have the sun coming up, but it's still quite cool. So you get this really crisp morning air. And as you're running, depending on how far you're going, obviously, it slowly gets warmer and warmer. And to me, that is sort of the ideal running environment.
This is paradise for running, man. It's the land of running, really. There are a lot of hills, some of them pretty steep, but if you just take it easy, one step at a time, really, nothing's impossible. It's not a treacherous terrain or anything. It's just very, very, very good trail running all around.
Mas Locos are the people that run our race. If you think about running our race, you're pretty loco. And if you actually run it, you're Mas Loco. And this year we got 80 aspiring Mas Locos coming down, and a few have come down earlier, and it's been really fun. It's been fun running with Flint and running with Olaf and showing them parts of the course, and just, I usually run alone. I'm a lone horse, and now I've got a herd to run with, and that's pretty cool.
Running with Caballo most mornings have been incredible. Running with him, he's so passionate about going for a run every day, and I think he really needs it for his well-being, mentally and physically.
He was a strong runner. He was a great climber. I think he was able to do anything he wanted with his running. You know, and when I met him, this guy was 58 years old, and if he decided you wouldn't follow him, you wouldn't.
One day when we went for a run, we ran into one of the Tarahumara runners, and he ended up running for a little bit with us.
He's a teacher, school teacher, dressed in his jeans and a shirt. And the guy just sees us running and he goes, oh, cool, you know, dude's going in the direction I'm going. He just starts running like there's nothing to it, and we ended up chatting for, what, half an hour? Running has always been presented as an effort or something that is hard, or something that, you know, you need a lot of will to be doing. You know what, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's true. You just look at these people, they do it. It's transportation, it's faster, you know, it's fun, it's good exercise, it keeps you healthy. And I think this talks a lot to the running people of the world.
Well, a typical Raramuri, traditional Raramuri, wears his Huarachi sandals that he makes by hand. They used to be made out of deer hide. Now they're made out of tire tread, since tires became a commodity. And became available. And yeah, these are thick for me. They'd be like work boots, work boot huaraches. So then if you want to run in them, you cut them much thinner. Like a lot of times the Raramuri carved, they like the tread, they like the stiff tread. Because of the spines and the terrain here, they really like a stiff sole. But what a Raramuri will do is he'll get in here and he'll slice this really thin, sometimes only the tread part. The lighter the better, if possible, but the reality is these weigh a lot more than running shoes.
Here we are in the town of Urique in a truckload of ball racing Raramuri, and we're off to document some ball racing. It's going to be awesome. We got Arnolfo over here. We got my friend Laurencio in the blue. It's going to be a good afternoon, pretty sure.
You know, you rarely see a Raramuri out there running 20 miles a day just for the hell of it. The Raramuri can't afford the caloric intake required to do so, so they save most of their running for the traditional ball race called the Rarahipare. During a typical Rarahipare, they're advancing a carved wooden ball. There might be 8 or 10 people on a team, and heavy gambling is involved. Runners in Raramuri land are like professional athletes in a sense. Certainly, the Raramuri take joy in running. You can see it in their face. You can see they love to run when they're running, and it brings material gain to the communities.
You know, every year the roads get closer and closer to town here, the paved roads. There's more power lines going in, trails are turning into roads. And when that happens, you know, they find other ways to make money instead of kind of living off the land, and they start taking rides in trucks more than walking where they need to go, which, you know, I don't know if it's our place to say whether they should do that or not, but it's inspiring to watch the locals down here run, and I think it would be a shame if they lost that part of their culture.
We've got 2 weeks until the race, approximately. What we're doing today is I'm passing out convocatorias, invitations. Para llegar jueves antes.
Jueves.
Sí, comer vaca y otras cosas, sí. Sí. Yo soy caballo blanco, Kaweki. Vamos a hacer la carrera otra vez en Urique. Gobierno quieren pinche turistas, pero yo quiero los Raramuri. Yo quiero 400 corredores, 400 ganadores. We are the messengers, fueled by the message we carry. When the message is of truth, beauty, love, and peace, we will always have the strength to find our ways home on this, our beautiful Mother Earth. By Caballo Blanco. Yeah! Just another day at the office for Caballo Blanco. My office has always been outside running over the mountains, and now being the subject of a worldwide best-selling book, I find myself having to do real office work. It usually takes the first couple of hours to delete all the messages from barefoot runners. I was coming off the trail onto the dirt road, and there was a guide van full of paparazzi. I get off the trail, they say, "There he is, the mysterious Caballo Blanco." Pop, 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 pop. I said, "What the fuck?" One of them looks at my feet and says, "Look, he's wearing shoes, what a phony." I said, "Yep, I'm a phony."
I would say, let's go do some photography. And he'd be reluctant. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be a star or anything like that. But I would remind him that, you know what, it's important. I think it's important that there's good images of you out there. People are interested in you. People want to see you. These images have value. Even if it's not valuable to you, it's valuable to the people out there. Let's do it. And he'd say no. And then wake up in the morning and say, let's go for a run. Bring your camera.
Caballo is I'd say an idealist. He's never satisfied with how things are going because he wants so much for the Tarahumara and for people less fortunate. He's a hard worker, and I wish he would take more time to appreciate what he's done because he does a lot of good down here. And you know, if he's ever in a foul mood or something, you know, you just have to mention his dog and his face just lights up as soon as you talk about Guadaluco.
As the race has become more successful, if you will, then every year it gets a bit more stressful. And I find for me that when I take a run and I'm out there in nature and I'm working things through my system for a few hours, it relaxes me and it enables me to just realize that I really have no control over all that stuff. All I can do is be me and do the best that I can and live my intentions the most authentically as I can and be as true as I can, and what will be, and just hope it goes in a good place. Have faith that it will.
After the book came out, I mean, I think for him, he never gave me the impression that he had changed. The environment around him probably had changed. You know, I think the environment around him was maybe too intense for his own liking at times, and at times it wasn't. And because he was basically a pretty reclusive guy, not anybody who wanted to be a public figure, but yet, you know, he was immersed in this world all of a sudden.
Yeah, everyone wants to talk with him. Everyone wants to maybe offer him things, and he is a celebrity, it's very obvious. But in the meantime, he's having none of it.
I'll be running and they'll be driving over to...
I sometimes describe Micah as an office worker who runs. He spends a lot of time paying attention to the business of Caballo Blanco. If you want to talk to Micah, if it's about Caballo Blanco stuff or about running, you'll hold his attention. But if you want to talk to him about much else, you better be quick.
We work pretty hard whole year round for this incredible race because of the tourism, because it brings culture and sports to the community, and also it brings business.
The race is it's kind of a lot of work. There's really a lot involved. For me, it's become a year-round project, promoting it and raising money to buy the corn for the race and answering inquiries from interested international runners. And you know, for me, it's a year-round project. Micah's, I don't know how to describe Micah. Micah's a big-hearted guy. He's pretty altruistic, I would say. He wants to do, in fact, Micah and I have had some falling outs about, you know, greed and things like that, to where Micah is very giving. And Micah works all year round for nothing, essentially, to give it all away.
One of the things that I've learned in all of this time, that the most valuable thing that we can give to each other, it's not money or things. The most valuable gift that we have to give each other is an opportunity, a chance. And I think that's what Micah was about, creating opportunities for people.
The last couple of years, in large part due to the notoriety of the book Born to Run, the fact that I happen to be a character in somebody's pretty good book, people want to hear what I have to say, so people are inviting me to various venues all over the U.S. and now in Europe.
As the opportunity to raise funds through our organization presented itself, then calls were coming in to him, please come and speak to our running group, or here or there and everywhere. It was all over the world.
He was about empowering people's lives.
And he did it through running as his medium and his voice certainly as his message.
It's been a little harder in some ways for me. It's been easier in some ways for me. Like the Raramuri, I appreciate smiling faces. I appreciate being acknowledged for doing something good. And I appreciate running people.
His message of kind of, you know, how running helped a people, how running sort of inspired his life was a universal kind of message.
We're all much more alike than different, and the Raramuri are realizing this.
I'm still not sure what it was about the message that he brought that inspired people so profoundly. But there's something about it that it's really been reaching into something many of us care about right now. At this point in history, there's something I think we all want to be part of, something more elemental, something more loving, something more beautiful. And responding to that in him, the spiritual side of him.
Yeah, I've been given a certain voice, I suppose, by being a character in a best-selling nonfiction book. And people, when I hear what I have to say, and it's up to me to use that voice in positive ways and to do the best I can to be sure that the people who inspired me are gaining from all of this notoriety as well.
He really has changed so many people's lives, and I think just with that one simple message that was, find in your heart what you want to do and go for it, and everything else falls into place.
I think he felt good about how much people responded to what he was doing, how many people showed up in the right spirit and participated and really cared and created almost like a family around him. And I know that that's part of it, but part of it is that Micah really found love.
Here in the Copper Canyons, I'm just known as La Mariposa. In many Native American tribes, the butterfly, or La Mariposa, goes through a big metamorphosis in their life. They start off wrapped up in a deep cocoon, suffering in darkness and loneliness and despair at times, yet somehow they see the goodness of life and the goodness of others and the goodness of just beauty around them, and they break out as this beautiful butterfly, flying among and touching those who they meet with some sense of happiness that no matter how tough things are in life or how slow you are in your run or whether you think you could take that other step, you'll find your strength in just the simplicity and the beauty of the butterfly.
You know, Caballo was human, so there's the legend of Caballo, this guy that would just run nonstop, and all he needed was a little bit of pinole and some water to survive. But, you know, then there was the other Caballo. When I finally met him in person in early '08, and he just seemed lonely. You know, he didn't have Guadajuco, he didn't have anybody. It was just him, the lone guy with his beers and mamatitas, you know. And so when he finally found Maria, he was super happy.
She's the kind of person that you are never going to suspect means anything but good for you. So when Caballo met her, I'm sure he realized, this is one person that will never betray me, and I had better be on my best behavior because she deserves the best behavior.
I could see over the last couple of years, but especially in the last year, that this is a man who was loved. Maria was able to be there for him in ways and enjoy him in ways that I don't think he's ever experienced before.
To me, he was always just Micah. The times that I did call him Caballo was when I'd be so proud of him, or he'd be running a race and I'd be like, woo, Caballo Blanco, and he'd be like, please don't call me that.
Through it all, I mean, he was completely in love, and she was definitely the right person for him. She kept him grounded and actually helped him grow more as a person. I think even helped him develop his vision here in the canyons a whole lot more.
This week, the whole town of Orique is going to fill up, so it's pretty exciting to see people get excited and jazzed about this for one, not just international runners, but spectators and the local townspeople. It's the biggest event in northern Mexico. People are talking about it all over Mexico, all over the world.
I've been here for several months now, and that's all these kids talk about is running in this race. And I'm seeing the younger generation from 8 years up, they're running all the time now. I've seen 14, 15, 16-year-olds starting to actually train, which is something the Tarahumara don't normally do. And to me personally, I feel that that is not only fortunate for them, but it's fortunate for the world. Because I think the Tarahumara have something very, very special the rest of the world needs.
The race is a weird animal. It is a weird organism that emerged from the muck on its own. It's been a strange experience to witness it from birth because, like every parent, you want the baby to stay a baby. And you remember when it was so little and cute, and now you step back and whoa, it's a teenager. It is big and gawky. What happened?
Caballo ends up becoming a kind of spark. Bam! His dream really has materialized into an explosion of what I see as super excellent, wonderful energy coming back into this canyon. Caballo, in all his ways and his own unique way of being a person that he is, has been the catalyst that has allowed what I have had the blessed opportunity to see. I've been coming here since 2006, seeing that indeed something good is happening around here. Something good, something infectious, something powerful is happening where this little town has come alive. This little town has become new again, rejuvenated. And it is absolutely, although he'll never say it for himself, or not in the way like I'm going to say, he's been the shaman to sort of like open that space up where this light could shine in. He didn't, it's like bam, and I think he got more than he maybe expected, or maybe as much. His dream materialized.
When the race got larger, there were a lot of other interests in Orique whose speeches came to the fore, and Micah had, at least at these big gatherings, less of an influence on what was said and how things felt.
The reason the race is occurring in Orique is because the people want it. That's the reason the politicos are having the races, to pump up the economy, to look big, to look like they've done a great thing for the area, and they are helping. You know, they came up with pretty good prize money. I have no corporate sponsors. Orique has the mining company, but you know, at least the mining company are giving back to their community that they're exploiting, you know. At least they're giving something back. So, you know, I have mixed feelings about that. I don't like being associated with some big open pit mine, you know. But they're giving back to the community.
The worst guy to be in charge of a race was the guy who created the race. You know, this is sort of not his thing. So it very quickly grew into something that Caballo never could have managed on his own because he just does not have the personality for it.
Micah was sometimes called the mythic hero. And I think that it's our human impulse. We need heroes, and he is a hero. But the reason why I think he is a hero might be a little different. To me, his heroism was that what he was able to accomplish, both because of who he was and despite who he was. Micah is not a superhero. He's a hero precisely because he was able to do so much with his spirit, despite all the other things that are going on in his life.
You know, all the people in the world can cash in all they want and do all the business, I guess, that they want, because there's nothing I can do about that. I have no control over any of that stuff. All I can do is be me and do the best I can and maintain my own reasons and authenticity, and hope that some people pick up on that and come along and keep it going that way. In the meantime, the people are running, and that's a good thing.
Aquí en Enrique, en esta carrera y en esta vida, no hay perdidos. Todos somos ganadores aquí. Para participar es que ganar. Para vivir la buena vida es que ganar. Que vivir con amor y paz y armonía sin la violencia es que ganar. Todos somos ganadores. Muchas gracias, Enrique.
As long as it's people are gaining in positive ways, and I feel as though people are embracing Korima and embracing the ideas of why it was started, I'll continue to have it. If I feel like it goes into a big commercial thing and people get greedy and it gets out of control, then I will just walk away.
Any last words for the race?
Corres libre, run free.
We run in peace.
How you feeling?
Pretty good, really.
Pretty excited and
Yeah.
as good as can be.
Yeah.
No, it's nice, it's finally here.
I mean,
Really
look at
good.
this, you know, the sun's coming up and the light is starting on the rim, and so, yeah.
So yeah, just looking forward to the struggle and the dust and the sweat and the pain, and all that should make it a good day.
We just heard that there might be up to 500 runners for the race, which is enormous, and that makes me really happy.
Una, dos, todos decimos, tres.
Going up to Guadalupe, which is part of the first loop, it's pretty easy. It's what we call rolling hills. That should get you into your rhythm, you know, as you go. There's a lot of ups and downs, but they're not that difficult. If you just be in your own rhythm and take your own time, I think anyone can do this, really.
Every year, I will run with mostly the women. They wear the long skirts, the beautiful colored blouses, the jingles on their belts, and some will wear huaraches, but some will just wear like 99-cent flip-flop sandals, and they run that whole distance. Last year I ran with a 14-year-old boy in a long, heavy cotton t-shirt and long jeans and sandals. He was only running because his family needed beans and rice to feed their family, and that's why he was running.
Each color is, well, the yellow one is the start, and each color is a village. So you get a color for each village you cross.
I think that living a healthy lifestyle in that they walk a lot just to get around, they work hard chasing down their goats, they eat basically natural foods, they don't do a whole ton of calories, they can't afford a whole ton of calories, and I think living simply like that just naturally makes them healthier. They have their challenges, they're not superhumans, they're not super athletes. They just remember how. They live closer to their genetic memory. They recall that genetic memory, and they call it up when they need it. I think that a lot of us, international runners, we're training ourselves to recall that genetic muscular memory that the Raramuri have never forgotten.
These events have nothing to do with time, distance, speed. Not that there's anything specifically wrong about those things. It's just that in the end, running 100 miles, running 50 miles is all about just learning how to do the moment well. Be concentrating on what the body's asking you. So much running in the time, distance, and dutiful kind of style. It's like, it's about the will and pushing, and which has its value, come on. But in the end, so many times if the will wins over the body, the reward is injury. And ultimately, as much as we all like seeing excellence in the pursuit of athleticism, we also want people to be happy and healthy in their life. And we don't want them to have to, their sport actually break them so that they don't even want to do it anymore or can't even do it anymore. Indeed, when I'm running in this, in a long, a 24-hour event, or in this case, maybe a 12-hour event, all I really concentrate on doing is learning how to stay in the place where I'm balanced, I'm flowing, I'm tuned in, I'm present, and I just stay there. And then I just flow.
The genius of Caballo's race was setting it up in a way that no other race has, which is doing it in a Y formation, where you begin at the point of the Y, and you're out, and you're back, and you're up, and you're down. The thing about it is that you get to see everybody all the time. The people watching the race see the runners like 4 times. You can be in the race and see where everybody is because they're coming back and forth. It's fantastic for a 50-mile race.
Coming back, you get ready for a very steep climb that goes up to Naranjo, it's called. At least 75% of it is runnable, definitely. And the rest of the 25, you'll just be happy hiking fast or just walking along, eating your food, getting hydrated.
The trail sections they're steep. They've done some trail work. They're still a bit rocky, loose sand, and a lot of times there's drop-offs right next to where you're running, so you gotta be careful.
The Naranjo Loop will be about 2,700 feet to climb in about 6 miles. There'll be tables of pinole. Atole pinole is the ground corn powder. Really great complex carbohydrate, electrolytes, wonderful stuff. There'll be atole corn soup up here.
You're out there, you're drinking water, but it's beating down on you. It can get quite dangerous out there. You can't catch a break.
These runners, while maybe you envisioned, these guys that are doing, sub 2-hour marathons or something like that in your mind, you get here and you realize that people just like anyone else. Their sandals bust when they're running, and they run with one sandal while they're fixing the other, and there's just so much more beauty in the story.
From the Naranjo, you go down all the way on the road, but it's 10 kilometers straight downhill. Then it's flat all the way to the city.
Y a unos pasos viene Miguel Ara. Neat thing to see these legendary runners in their element out here. They make it look so easy, man. It's cool.
You can just look into these guys' eyes and crack a smile with them, and you're kind of sharing something special out there.
The biggest thing is just the experience of being out there at the Rammery. Everyone's here to run and to celebrate that we can run, and what the Rammery, what their culture is, and what it is a privilege to be able to run with them.
Biggest challenge, I think, just the legs, just the fatigue for the legs on the uneven ground with the rocks and everything.
The only heartbreaker is I crossed Micah on the way, and he's done. He took a spill, and he's all bleeding. He cut himself really bad, and that kind of makes me sad a little bit.
And got pretty torn up from head to toe, and my knee and my hip are pretty out of whack. So that was it.
Get to the top. That's the next goal. To the top of the next hill.
beautiful day. I feel immensely, immensely grateful to be here. Thank you.
From the city, you get into a 20-mile loop that goes from the street over the river to a ranch called Los Alisos.
It's always guesswork when we get to this stage of the race. But yeah, right on pace, a little bit in front actually what I was hoping here, so that's good. If I can just maintain this, I'll be happy.
This is awesome. Great service. Great aid stations. Can't tell you how much fun this is.
This could be a real hot part of the course. Here's where we start climbing the trail to Los Alisos. Most people will be hiking this section because you can't run it any faster than you could hike it. And by this point, the field will be spread out. People hang out as long as they need to and turn around and run back to Arique. When they arrive in Arique, it'll be 40 miles.
Are you with us? I think the badass is done. I have to come back next year and finish the job, I think.
You finished the race?
No, only one more. All right, well, the man has spoken, I suppose. If you guys keep the beer cold, I'll be back.
We'll have a cold beer for you.
All right, you bastards. When you have gone, as you say, 40 miles, the last 10, 15 miles is purely a mental thing, just to keep moving your feet sometimes. Physically, sometimes you hurt that much. It doesn't make sense to keep going, but somehow you do. Sometimes it ends up being a team thing because you get halfway through and you might be struggling and somebody comes up behind you and go, "You okay?" And we talk a bit, we run along together for a while. So in a way, it's an individual, but it sort of turns out to this common goal that we just got to get through this individually, but we help each other.
But whether you're a participant, competitor, or somebody that just witnesses the event, it's just joy. It's just simple joy, and you don't think about the politics, you don't think about the violence in Mexico, because everybody comes together to create peace and to create harmony and love in the middle of nowhere.
This is Miguel Lara, the true champion of the Ultramarathon Caballo Blanco 2012. 21 years old.
The Raramuri are being cultivated as the natural resource that they are, rather than being exploited. And they're all interacting with respect and showing respect for one another, and it's a pretty beautiful thing.
So how much corn does he get for
20, a ton of corn. A ton of corn, and oh God, 25,000 pesos, so a couple $1,000 and a ton of corn.
What are you gonna do with your corn?
Give us the corn, right? He's gonna give it to the Raramuri, and that's a wonderful gesture because there's a lot of Raramuri that need to eat. And thank you very much, brother. Thank you very much.
I love running, and I am in the land of people who run for culture, and that's how I think running should be. We should all run for passion.
You know, they come from a running culture. They're mountain people who exercise all day long, you know, just in their daily chores. And it's pretty beautiful that they can come out here and run 50 miles and take home a voucher for grain that they can share with their family.
So this year we were able to raise enough funds, over $40,000 in vouchers, and everyone who participated received these vouchers to have food to feed their families for quite a while. It was such an honor to give them a voucher and say "Materaba," which means thank you. I received a phone call from the New Mexico State Police that Micah was missing.
When he was last seen, he was running down the road. So there are no tracks to work with or anything. And he left his dog back behind, and when he didn't return, the search was called.
Sure as shit, he's missing in Gila Hot Springs, New Mexico.
Anyone who could travel fast down there did. Everybody started scrambling from California to Canada to everywhere, really.
So I got on Facebook and I just said, I'm leaving Santa Maria, California at noon, and I'm driving south on the 101. If you're available to come with me, jump in the car, I could use a driver. And 4 or 5 people responded and said, oh, I'll go with you. Christopher McDougall, of all people, happened to be in Los Angeles at LAX. He was doing a talk. Again, I don't know how this happens, but now here we are all together in the car, driving through the desert. By 8:30 Friday morning, we were in our running gear, assigned to a search and rescue team, searching.
They did stop there, but Tim and I had cleared a path.
There were at least 20 or more of our friends, fellow ultramarathon runners from around the country, fellow Copper Canyon ultramarathon runners from around the world.
And we decided, we looked at the topo and we said, this creek leads back to the hot springs. It's a good place to look. And the whole time, we, screaming out, caballo, caballo.
It was an amazing thing that they allowed ordinary people to join in the effort. And I was told after that it's because we're ultra runners.
People referenced, passages in the book and quotes from him that, he just wanted to, walk off into the wilderness when his time came, and it was almost as if he had just vanished.
We knew it was his way to just when he felt the world closing in, he would squirt out for an exit. This didn't feel like that.
And we looked and looked and looked all day Friday into the evening, and of course didn't find him. And it was cold, and something was wrong. Something was really wrong.
After 4 days of searching, he was found by some of his friends, actually.
Micah is where they found him, along a beautiful creek, resting peacefully. I love you. My heart felt like the deepest pain I've ever went through in my life. I love you. You still look beautiful to me. Hey, we love you, Daddy. We'll run together soon again, okay? Aww. People say, well, he died what he loved doing. And I don't like that expression. He lived what he loved doing. The most simple man I've ever known. His greatest joy was running. His greatest joy was playing and dancing out on the trails with his dog. If he couldn't run, he wasn't so happy. He always had to be out there, not because I have to run to be in shape to be a better athlete. It's like, this is the way I pray. This is my meditation. This is the gift that I give back to God and Mother Earth by blessing her pathway with my feet.
Man, I miss him.
was about integrity, respect, somebody who had just a super deep conviction. And I mean, down to the bone. And
he will be missed, and very much by the Raramuri, who he really did make a difference in their lives, and I think that all that he's done will continue.
I think his physical needs were almost beyond simple, almost primitive. His sense of humanity was highly, highly evolved. And when we leave, we take our piece of his spirit and do something that would make Caballo Blanco proud of humanity.
Thanks to Micah for showing us what it really means to have an enormous heart. Thank you, Micah.
You know, every single event we did, we discovered tons of people who were touched by Micah, by his message, and who just had this yearning for it to continue. And everybody was saying, this has to continue. This is his legacy.
It's got to keep going. Somebody's got to take the baton now and do something beautiful with it. It's a relay now.
Everyone's coming together to remember Micah. The Raramuri are coming in bigger numbers than ever before, and because they know that it's a memorial for Micah.
He's always in our hearts, she said.
Siento mucho que pues verlo perdido a él, pero pues ni modo, el destino así es. Todos los humanos somos mortales, ahorita hacemos, mañana no hacemos. Y ahorita pues me siento triste y orgulloso con verlos a todos ustedes que están visitándome aquí en Los Alices.
Sí.
Muchas gracias, compañeros.
The white horse needs to be set free.
You can just keep bringing people to this race, and the family keeps growing. We're very tight.
Really, it's about the people and the family and the perspective and what's important in life. And it's this, you know, hanging out and with the amigos and the amigas and having fun and a lot of hugs and mas locos, you know.
From day one, the very first day, one of the runners.
Running is a small part of this story. It's just the people. Be cool to each other. Be nice. And create opportunities for people to do good. And that's the Caballo Blanco way.
Thank you, Manuel. Gracias.
When you experience life here, life at its simplest, you understand a couple more things maybe than you did before. And you place value on different things that you did before. And I think that's what unites Mas Locos, much more than anything else. Values from the heart, exactly like Micah had.
We can